Hey everyone, Spin here. Notice anything different? I'm a cartoon now! Pretty sick, right? This avatar was drawn for me by my friend, StrawburryUsagi. She did an amazing job, and I'll link her socials in the description down below. So, not long ago, I uploaded my 10 things I hate about being autistic video, and in that, I showed the thumbnails of 5 other videos that have the same concept as mine. I thought it would be fun and interesting to watch those videos and talk about some of the other issues that I may have missed. I'd like to briefly explain how this video is going to work, and then we'll jump into it. So, I have already watched and reacted to all the videos we're going to get into today, but I watched them all in one sitting and was beyond overwhelmed. I needed to find another way to process everything. So I put all of our points in a spreadsheet and I highlighted similar points between the videos. I'll start by going over the points we had in common, because I think our combined points of view expand on some of these issues in a really fascinating way. And I'll wrap everything up by discussing some of the more unique points made in these videos. So let's get started. Based on the spreadsheet I made, there isn't a point that is shared across all 6 videos. However, the top 2 points shared across most of them is social interaction and overstimulation. On the topic of overstimulation, I really liked what Chloé had to say.
Sensory overload is a real issue that people on the spectrum face daily, hourly, minutely. It's something that we go through every single day of our lives, and it kind of sucks. Sensory overload isn't always meltdowns and crying and need to completely disappear from society for 3 weeks at a time, which also happens to me. I'll admit, that's fine. And you know what, that's fine, it happens, and you know what, that's okay. Sensory overload can also be, if I put on makeup for more than 2 hours at a time, I feel so fatigued and so drained, and I don't know why, but that's kind of sensory overload in itself. And that's annoying, because I would love to doll myself up every single day and just be like, hello boys, it's me. But it's tiring, and I have to kind of be like, what's more important to me? And honestly, being comfortable is a lot more important. Yep, yeah. But then some days as well, I'll have days where I'm like, yep, today's a good day, we're gonna go out and do stuff, and it's gonna be brilliant. I'm gonna ride 4 horses, and I'm gonna go out and film 7 videos, and I'm gonna go out and like go to the shops and just like make a real good day of myself. And then the next day, I'll be like, I don't even want to leave my bed today, and it's not fun. I would kill to be able to have this amount of energy every single day of my life and every single second of the day. Most other people would disagree. My mum would be like, thank God. But yeah, sensory overloads aren't fun for anyone. So that kind of sucks. Honestly, if there was one part of autism that I would change about myself, it would be that I didn't get sensory overload, and that things like that didn't bother me, because it can be a bit of a pain and it can take a bit of a toll on you. So sensory overload is not fun.
This may seem pretty simple for others, but I personally tend to dismiss the fact that overstimulation includes all 5 senses. In my video, I talk a lot about stimuli from others, like people cheering and such. However, things like makeup or hair being on your face, your clothes, and all matter of other things can contribute to that overstimulation. It's not just from this set of things or that set of things. It's from all the things combined. And that's why it's such a big deal to us. It's a lot. The other big point shared across most videos is having trouble with social interaction. This is one that I didn't put in my own video though, and I'd like to explain why. While I certainly acknowledge and accept the limitations and hurdles that come with being on the spectrum, I also believe that some of those hurdles can be overcome with education and patient mentors. For example, Orion Kelly talks about having difficulties with understanding nonverbal communication.
What I hate about being autistic is this inability or lack of understanding of body language, signs, signals, non-verbal communication, all those types of things. So this is something as part of my autism I struggle with, and it's not uncommon, this kind of social interaction issue. And everyone experiences it differently. I'm speaking on behalf of me as an autistic person. I'm one of those kinds of people where I will, without wanting to, pretty much misinterpret everything you say, take it the wrong way, get defensive, not understand what you're saying, perceive it differently. But also, if you wanted to communicate to me without clear literal wording, as in body language or non-verbal cues, I'm sorry, but I'm probably 9 out of 10 times absolutely not going to pick up on them. And it's not because I don't want to, it's because I'm just not aware of them. My brain is wired differently, as All autistic people's brains are no different to your brain. Your brain just does things a particular way. One way, no way.
Naturally, yes, the autistic individual may have issues understanding those things. However, what helped me was actually taking a communication class in college. That class taught me about the ways that people position their body and hands, and the combination of verbal and nonverbal communication and how that can change the meaning behind a phrase. Like if a person has their arms folded and body turned away from you, but then they tell you they're fine. This is all part of that raw data I talk about in my own video. Now, I don't say these things to belittle people on the spectrum, but rather to inspire. I think the word can't is used a lot in neurodivergent spaces, and I'd like to inspire a bit more hope. It's going to be difficult, but I believe it's possible. I could make a whole video on this though, so let me know if you'd like to expand on this more in the future. But now let's talk about some points that were only shared by a couple of these videos. There were a few other overlapping points, like Woodshed Theory talking about being manipulated.
So as I mentioned, as an ASD person, I tend to take things at face value. It's just natural for me to trust people, and that includes anyone with nefarious intentions. I know that there are people out there that can take advantage of people like me, and I do try and surround myself with others who can help me catch that and help me kind of mitigate that in my life. But I'm not always able to catch everyone, and I have found myself being manipulated in the past, and I don't like it.
In my video talking about not being able to read people's intentions. This is something that I wanted to mention in my video, but I opted to keep it a bit more light as to not scare or trigger anyone. But it is a real issue that people in the spectrum have to face, and I think it's important for everyone to understand. Woodshed Theory recommends this.
Another YouTuber, Hardwired to Learn, Will, is another ASD YouTuber, and he made a great video about how to tell if you're being manipulated when you're on the spectrum, so I'll go ahead and link that down below.
Some other overlapping points are misunderstanding from both the autistic individual to their neurotypical peers and vice versa, along with having issues making and managing relationships of all kinds, and dyspraxia, which I found interesting.
I absolutely hate being so clumsy, so unco. I hate it. I mean, they're not the right words to describe it. The real word is, well, you saw it, dyspraxia. But being autistic, I don't do a great job reading where my body is in the space, in the world around me. So, I'm one of those people who every time I walk into a room or walk out of a room, I almost inevitably hit the wall or the door frame, right? Or I might accidentally bump into someone. I am constantly bumping into my own family. Literally like I've done some sort of, rude hip and shoulder. I mean, I didn't even know. And it's not until it happens, I go, whoa, I'm sorry. Like I had no idea. The awareness wasn't there. There's not something I'm gonna be able to take or do to get rid of it, but it makes me come across to neurotypical people as really clumsy, really uncoordinated, and in a way they kind of can label me as that fidgety, nervous, clumsy guy, which none of those are correct. It's dyspraxia. It's something that I have got as a part of my autism, which really affects my ability to understand where my body and where I am in space.
For those that don't know, dyspraxia is a developmental disorder that affects movement and coordination. The NHS says that dyspraxia can affect your coordination skills, such as tasks requiring balance, playing sports, or learning to drive a car. There are ways to help treat dyspraxia like physical therapy and such, which I find reassuring. But now, let's get into the more unique points made by these videos. The first unique point I'd like to highlight was made by a YouTube channel that goes by the name Asperger Syndrome. One of the points he brings up in his video is how difficult it is for people in the spectrum to hold down a job.
I think the longest I ever held down a conventional job, the 9 to 5, clock in, clock out type of a job, I think the longest I ever held a job was 6 months. We've talked about this in other videos. I had one job, I held it for, 2 weeks. And it's not that I couldn't do the work, it's not that I had a bad attitude, I always showed up on time, but you just couldn't communicate socially with other people. But the reality is that does seem to be a de facto requirement to hold down a job. You have to be able to socialize, to get along with people. As strange as that may seem, because that is what people are like. It's part of our human nature. I think maybe 30% of people with high-functioning autism are able to hold down a job.
I really resonated when he said that it wasn't that he couldn't do the work or had a bad attitude. It was that he struggled with the social aspects of the jobs he's had. There are a lot of jobs, especially at entry level, that require some kind of communication skills to even be considered for the job, and it's something you even put on your resume. I understand why companies require good communication skills, and I personally am a huge advocate of communication in any kind of interpersonal relationship, but when it's something you struggle with and also a required skill for most jobs, that poses a bit of an issue. People on the spectrum aren't without hope though. There are plenty of other jobs and ways to make money out there that don't require much social activity and allow for more focus on their strengths. We can do this, guys.
I was able to start a business and work for myself, so that wasn't a primary factor throughout most of my adult life.
I'd like to now jump back over to Woodshed Theory's video and specifically to the part where she talks about executive functioning issues.
I hate my executive functioning issues. I struggle to keep a good, solid schedule for myself that doesn't cause stress. I know that a lot of autistic people thrive on a schedule, and I'm not going to disagree. It's just hard for me to get there because of my OCD and my perfectionism, but I am working on it. I do struggle to keep up with things like dishes and laundry, even if I have a list all written out for me. It's almost like that work schedule where people do 4 days on and then 3 days off. That's kind of what it feels like for me. Like there are days where everything is firing and I get a lot done, and there are other days where I forget to do anything relevant and I just focus on my special interest or nothing at all. I just wish in that way I had things a little bit more together.
This is a very real thing that, according to Asperger Autism Network, is something that as many as 80% of autistic individuals also have associated executive functioning challenges. Merriam-Webster defines executive functioning as the group of complex mental processes and cognitive abilities, such as working memory, impulse inhibition, and reasoning, that control the skills, such as organizing tasks, remembering details, managing time, and solving problems, required for goal-directed behavior. Have you ever heard someone on the spectrum say, "I know what I want to do, but I have no idea how to get there"? That's a prime example of what a lack of executive functioning looks like. Executive functioning issues aren't required to have an autism diagnosis, but is very closely linked to those that are on the spectrum. I bring this up because I also have issues with executive functioning, but I keep forgetting that I do. And I would have put that in my own video had I remembered it was a thing. There are a lot of great videos that dive into this a bit deeper. I'll share some in the description down below. Now, I'd like to wrap up this video talking about two unique points that were brought up in Chloé Hayden's video. First, she talks about people undermining the abilities of people on the spectrum.
I've genuinely had people in my life who baby and belittle me after finding out that I'm on the spectrum. And this isn't like, oh, she's like having a meltdown, oh, she's in sensory overload, oh, she needs help. This will be in daily life where it happens. And it doesn't happen so much to me because I'm pretty good at being like, hey, I'm a strong individual woman, I can do my own thing, we're good. But I do have several friends on the spectrum who do experience this daily, even though they're incredibly capable people. Or the way that I suppose it would happen more so to me personally on a lot of videos that I post, or on a lot of times when people see me, people say things like, oh, that's incredible that you can do that even though you're on the spectrum. Wow, look at you living life like a normal human even though you're autistic. Can you see how that would kind of get a little bit frustrating and a little bit annoying? Basically, the thing that I'm trying to say here is don't treat us like what your expectations of autism are. Treat us like who we are as individual people.
This somehow feels familiar to me. I can't place my finger on a specific instance, but there have been a number of people that I've interacted with that feel the need to baby me once I tell them I'm on the spectrum. It's very annoying and shows, honestly, how little they think I'm capable of. I try not to take it too personally though, because I know how autism is marketed. I think that a lot of people associate being on the autism spectrum with children. I think that it's always marketed and advertised as something that you get diagnosed when you're a child. They always show children in ads. The logo used to be a freaking puzzle piece, like, you know, and it was primary colors. Like you search for autism on Google or autistic on Google, and you probably will get children. Let's do that real quick. Kids, there's kids. You image search autism and you get children. People, look at this. You search for autism, people associate autism with children. And so I feel like that's what people think. They think they need to baby you because when you search for autism, it's so highly associated with children. And it's just how your brain is. Adults have autism. Teenagers have autism. If you're born with it, you got that until you die, dude. It's a thing. And there are also those that do really need that extra help. I would say to those trying to educate themselves to just be aware that autism really is a spectrum and that one's needs won't always be the same as someone else's. And one final point brought up by Chloe is how people in the spectrum tend to be bullied for being different.
The relentless bullying that happens because of being different. Now, I left this one till last, but this is easily the most difficult thing about being on the spectrum. Sensory overload and meltdowns and not understanding communication has nothing on this. There is not a single thing that I can think of that is worse than feeling excluded and being so relentlessly bullied because of who you are. Not so fun fact, 49% of kids on the spectrum are being bullied so relentlessly to the point where it causes severe emotional trauma that will carry throughout their entire lives. That's really terrifying. And that's 5 times more likely than any other kid in the classroom. And you know how bad bullying is on a whole. Imagine if it's a child on the spectrum. Imagine if it's someone who already feels so alienated within their own body. That's pretty much 1 in 2 kids, man. That's half of the kids on the spectrum that are getting bullied. That's 1 in 2. That's a huge number. That sucks, man. Like, that really sucks. And this is the most important one that I have said, but it is also the one that has the most likelihood of changing and that needs to change the most, because it's not fair that the things that we hate the most about ourselves aren't even anything to do with ourselves. It's to do with other people. And this isn't just me personally going like, stop bullying me, stop harassing me on the internet. This has come from so many people that I have spoken to. Every single one of them can vividly recall every single one of their bullying experiences, and they're not just small things. It's big, intense, scary, devastating stuff that really ruins a kid's life forever.
The fact that this happens is awful and feels terrible to have happen to you, especially when you aren't sure what the problem was in the first place. Plus, being super sensitive to things makes it all the more upsetting and traumatic. I was bullied when I was a kid, but I'll save that for another video. At the end of the day, I just wish more people knew about this. Anyways, there was a lot of content to cover in all 5 of these videos, so I highly recommend you watch them for yourself and give these awesome creators some support. I'll link all their videos in the description. But just because the video is ending doesn't mean the conversation has to. So leave a comment down below if you can relate to any of the points we talked about today. And of course, if you liked this video, then I would appreciate you clicking that like button and subscribing for more. I'll see you on the next one. Bye.